So my senator, Chris Van Hollen, a senator from Maryland, went over to El Salvador after Kilmar Abrego Garcia was illegally deported there against the orders of a judge who made a decision back in 2019 against his deportation to El Salvador. Out of all the countries in the world they said that you cannot deport this man to, they explicitly said El Salvador. And then that was ignored, and he was deported to El Salvador. A move that the Trump administration itself admitted was a mistake, that they did it in a quote unquote, what they kept saying was administrative error. But after he was illegally deported and denied his right to due process, which applies to both citizens and non citizens, despite what some representatives or talking pundits might say, the Trump administration then went on to claim that since he was already back in El Salvador, deported to a supermax notorious South American prison, even though he has been found guilty of no crime either in the United States or El Salvador, and that is according not to me, but according to the vice president of El Salvador, the very government that is holding him captive at the moment, he has not been allowed to return. He has not been allowed to leave the prison. And the Trump administration, despite being ruled by a 9-0 Supreme Court majority that he had to facilitate his return, has played word games and said that facilitate actually means we just need to make sure there's no domestic obstructions. But has also gone on to say that if he was to return to the United States, they would just deport him to another country anyway. Then you go over to the El Salvadorian government, and they're not as helpful either, because they say that the man is a terrorist and therefore they are not going to deport a terrorist over to the United States. Now, mind you, I don't believe Kilmar Garcia, being or not being an MS-13 gang member, is of any importance when it comes to how the process was carried out and the right for anyone to have due process. Gang members, non-gang members, murderers, non-murderers, prostitutes, non-prostitutes, not that any of these things are equivalent, drug dealers, non-drug dealers, all of these people deserve due process in our system because it needs to be a base requirement for everyone. Because if you don't make it a base requirement for everyone, then you cannot guarantee that it won't be denied to anyone. Won't be denied to you, won't be denied to me. Today it's Garcia, tomorrow it could be you and me. And with how Donald Trump has talked about deporting American citizens to foreign prison camps, you can't really be so bashful about it or brush it off as a non-concern. So whether or not this man is or is not an MS-13 gang member, which the Trump administration has not proved in the court of law, what matters more than anything is the fact that every man deserves due process, and therefore that includes this man. So Senator Chris Van Hollen went to El Salvador, and at first they said that he could not meet with him, that they could not meet with him due to security reasons. Now, what security reasons could possibly stop a sitting U.S. senator from seeing a man that was illegally deported from his district of representation, by the way? I was looking at all the old court filings that everybody's been publishing and such, and it's from like my county. It's like Prince George's County, or I see another thing from Montgomery County. That's a county in an area not too far away from me. So he's there, and he can't be let in for what security reason? Is he going to break him out? Is he going to break him out of what is supposed to be one of the most secure prisons in the world? Is he going to, well, what is he going to do? Is Garcia going to get him? Is the MS-13 going to get him? What's going to happen? Nothing's going to happen. It's just it was a justification to deny entry that they did not deny to other American legislators when they came for propaganda visits and propaganda tours. Anyway, eventually, due to the public, I think the public attention and public pressure, but ultimately we're not in the head of the administration, but I certainly think that the public pressure helped. They allowed Senator Chris Van Hollen to meet with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, confirming not only his life is, still, he's still with the living, but allowing him to have a short sit-down conversation with him, as you can see in this table here. Now, this meeting was bizarre. And when I say it was bizarre, I mean it was bizarre. First off, where are they? Where are they sitting? This doesn't look like the prison. Is this some restaurant? What table are they sitting at? What's with are those cherries? Are those supposed to be margaritas? What is it? This is very strange. What's going on here? Now, if you're confused as to the festive setting and the fact that Garcia seems to be in kind of relaxing clothes, listen to this. Mr. Bukele, in a social media post, even crowd that Kilmar Abrego Garcia, miraculously risen from death camps and torture, was now sipping margaritas with Senator Van Hollen in the tropical paradise of El Salvador. That was what he posted on Twitter. And I saw him repost other stuff as well, indicating that the El Salvadorian government, now having showed him to the world, is going to retain him and continue to hold on to him, even though they have proven no crime against him. But according to a person familiar with the situation, a Bukele aide placed the 2 glasses with cherries and salted rims on the table in front of Mr. Van Hollen and Mr. Abrego Garcia in the middle of their meeting in an attempt to stage the photo. Now, if you go back and you look at those glasses, those are not margaritas. Okay, I grew up in an Irish American family. Those are not margaritas. I've seen enough margaritas on Bar Rescue and bar hopping and just being around people who like margaritas. I don't like margaritas. Those were not margaritas. Those were water or margaritas. No, it's just my family likes to drink. And women like to drink margaritas. Women in my family like to drink margaritas and wine. Those were not margaritas. Those were water glasses of water set to look tropical in a restaurant setting to make it look like Mr. Abrego Garcia is basically on vacation in El Salvador. That he's there vacationing and having a good time and relaxing and chilling and vibing, and that there's nothing to worry about. And so the whole world can forget about him. They can forget about him. Stop talking about him. Stop bringing him up. Forget his name. Forget it ever existed. Disappears in the system. It disappears in the system. It happens. Just forget about him. Forget about him. Forget about him. Forget the name Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Just forget about him. Again, the point here isn't that he is or is not a gang member, whether, his recent times, you're working as a sheet metal worker in a union to try to, make money for his 3 kids, shows him reforming from a life of crime, or if he never even had a life of crime to begin with. None of that matters. None of that matters. What matters is the fact that every person on the continental United States deserves due process. And once you start knocking it down for one person, it's a lot easier to knock it down for another person. And we already got, through Trump's big mouth, him talking about deporting American citizens to these foreign prisons. And so if these foreign prisons are talking about keeping Abrego Garcia in prison, though he's guilty of no crime, do you think he's going to treat an American citizen much differently if the Trump administration wants him to be treated that way? Many things to be concerned about. Here is Senator Chris Van Hollen talking about Margarita Gate, as it is being referred to the press, while with Garcia's wife, I believe, to his wife. I believe that's Garcia's wife. I've seen her in a bunch of press conferences.
Now I just want to take a moment. I hadn't planned to do this, but as I was landing on the airplane, I got a transcript of some questions President Trump was asked at the White House today about what I would call Margarita Gate. I don't know if you guys have been following this, but President Bukele, after I met with Kilmar, did this tweet showing us at a table.
ICE has already detained a citizen in Florida. He's out now, but that's only due to mass protest.
Don't keep your eye off the ball. If you stop and you remove your eyes from your rights, your government might misplace them.
Showing us at a table with these 2 glasses. So here's what happened. When I first sat down with Kilmar, we just had glasses of water on the table. I think maybe some coffee. And as we were talking, one of the government people came over and deposited 2 other glasses on the table with ice, and I don't know if it was salt or sugar around the top, but they look like margaritas. And if you look at the one they put in front of Kilmar, it actually had a little less liquid than the one in front of me, to try to make it look, I assume, like he drank out of it. Let me just be very clear. Neither of us touched the drinks that were in front of us. And if you want to play a little Sherlock Holmes, I'll tell you how you can know that. So if you look at the video or the picture I sent out from the beginning of our meeting, you'll see there are no glasses on the table. So you'll see in later videos they are on the table. But they made a little mistake. For some people are very careful, right? If you sip out of one of those glasses, some of whatever it was, salt or sugar, would disappear. You would see a gap. There's no gap. Nobody drank any margaritas or sugar water or whatever it is. But this is a lesson into the lengths that President Bukele will do to deceive people about what's going on. And it's also shows the lengths that the Trump administration and the president will go to, because when he was asked about a reporter about this, he just went along for the ride.
How long until we have American citizens passed out, taking photos on a El Salvadorian in the countryside with a bag of white substance next to them, picture taken, like, oh, that American citizen that disappeared, it seems he's found himself vacationing in El Salvador. Might as well forget about him too. Sprinkle a little bit of the creaky crack on him, and you know, problem solved. Look, these are propaganda games by the types of regimes that people make comedies about, like The Interview. These type of propaganda games are intended, though, as silly as they are, to dehumanize him enough, even though, you know, all of the terrorist this and terrorist that seemingly wasn't enough, and make it look like he's having a good enough time that you don't need to pay attention. You don't need to pay attention? Forget about it. Take your eyes off your rights so your government can misplace them. Okay, Mr. Bukkake, we're not going to call him Mr. Bukkake. We're not doing that. I refuse. I refuse.